Hello, I'm an old fart, and I have a guilty pleasure. I like knives. I'm not an expert or an official representative of anybody or anything. I just like knives. And I have a collection of small folding pocket knives. And for the last year, a little more than a year now, I guess, during the COVID lockdown, you've been joining me roughly once a week as we take a little tour through my collection. Thanks for the company. Today, as we near the end of the collection, we're going to have a look at this little knife. This is a Neuron by Vero Engineering. I'll get into it in a little more detail. I've always liked Vero knives. I like small manufacturers. I like the fact that they're a little bit hard to get and a little bit unique. I like a lot of those things. I've also really come to like sort of modern traditional knives, by which I mean slip joints and double detents, non-locking knives that remind me of my Boy Scout knife or my grandpa's jackknife. This is a non-locking knife, and it looks a lot like the Axon Mini from Vero, which I also really liked. In fact, I assumed this was the same knife, just with a different mechanism. It turns out to be wrong. So anyway, so formally, this is a Vero Neuron. And they refer to this as a double-detent non-locking knife. And it is very similar in sort of appearance, general design, to the Axon and the Axon Mini from Vero Engineering as well. The mechanism, it is a non-locking knife. You just pull it open and you push it shut. Now, technically it's not a slip joint because it doesn't use a cam-shaped blade heel against a back spring. You can see there's no back spring there. It uses a detent ball with two resting locations. So it's a double detent knife, and technically it's not a slip joint. Now I always try to refer to knives the way the manufacturer refers to them. I think they have the right to decide what their knives are called. And so I do have some double detent knives that the manufacturer calls slip joints, and so do I. This one they call a double detent. They don't call it a slip joint, so I'll also respect that. So a double detent knife. And that means there's a detent ball here holding it closed, and there's a detent ball here holding it open. You can just hear that if I just raise it up and get it near the microphone. You can hear the detent ball snapping into place. So, non-locking knife. A neat thing about this knife, still on the mechanism, is you can open it many ways. 4, I guess, maybe more. You can open it with 2 hands by grabbing the milled recess here, so just like a jackknife. And there are several ways you can open it one-handed. You can put your thumb in that recess and toggle it open like that. A person with less arthritis than me could no doubt flick it open. I can't quite do that. You can spidey flick it open by putting your forefinger in the recess on this side. Spidey flick, which is kind of cool. And it also has a front flip mechanism. This heel of the blade that is sticking out here is jimped. You can put your forefinger on that and front flip it open, which is what I usually do. Generally, the way I handle this knife is if I have 2 hands available, I open it two-handed because that's safer and less scary for bystanders. And if I need to open it one-handed for some reason, I tend to use the front flip because it's just so easy and neat, and I like that mechanism. So that's kind of cool. Let's talk about the size. This is a small and light knife. I said at the start, I assumed that it was the same as the Axon Mini, just a different mechanism. That turns out to be wrong. There's the Axon Mini, and as you can see, it is actually slightly smaller in every dimension than the Axon Mini. So very much the same design, but not the same knife. So I was wrong about that. It's 160 millimeters long, which is certainly small. See my most important measurement, it's much less than a pocket calculator. It's about 0.85 pocket calculators, one of the smaller knives I have. In fact, by comparison, well, we already showed it next to an Axon Mini. I usually compare knives to the Benchmade Mini Griptilian. It's somewhat shorter than the Mini Griptilian. In fact, the only knives that I have that are sort of the same size are the truly tiny knives in my collection. Like there's an Almar, which is slightly smaller. The Benchmade Megumi is also in the same size. So this is a small knife, although it doesn't really look small. It looks substantial. It's also definitely a lightweight knife if we talk about the weight. It's 57 grams, which is lighter than the Axon Mini. That's not surprising. Same design, smaller. Of course, it's lighter. It's about the same as some of the other slip joints, like the tactile bear in the collection. Slightly more than a TRM Nerd, which is a very small and light knife. So this is a lightweight knife, which makes it very pocket friendly. We'll come back to that. The blade is a modified sheep's foot. Not sure what the modified is. And M390 steel, which is probably my favorite steel at present. When I say that, by the way, of course, the new amazing kid on the block steel that's out just recently is Magna Cut, and I really don't have much experience with that yet. So for now, M390 remains my favorite steel. So nice blade, nice steel, slightly unusual shape, which I both like and dislike for reasons we'll get to. The body is, like the Axon, is micarta, and it's a very coarse micarta, not sanded smooth. So, a very noticeable texture there. Can you hear that? Which gives it a very casual, comfortable feeling. And it's on very thin and minimal titanium frame in there. I don't know if I can get that to where you can see it. There we are. The titanium frame is bored internally for weight reduction. So definitely a minimal material, lightweight knife. There's a clip. Many so-called slip joints don't have a clip. They're really designed to sit in the pocket. This one does have a clip, attractive milled titanium. It is a shallow carry clip. I wish it wasn't, but oh well. And it is not movable. If you can see, the clip is sitting in a recess in the, there we are, sitting in a recess in the micarta, and there is no equivalent recess on this side, so you cannot move the clip to the other side. There is no lanyard hole, but there is a pin, this spacer pin, that you could use for a lanyard if you wanted to, because it is pulley shaped. But as with the other knives using that technique, if you wanted to put a lanyard around that, you'd need to make sure you tied it quite tight, because the cord would be dangerously close to the live edge of the blade and might abrade on it. So I would say it's not meant for a lanyard. Don't wreck the design intent, leave it alone. Is it ambidextrous? Well, except for the clip, completely, yes. There is no liner or frame lock that is awkward with one hand and good with the other. The milled recesses that are part of your opening options are on both sides. The front flipper, of course, is on both sides. So opening, sure, it is completely ambidextrous. Even I can open it, well, not very well, but even I can open it with my left hand. And closing, absolutely ambidextrous. There is no locking mechanism. So it is ambidextrous except for the clip. But I think, pretty friendly knife for the left-handed collectors. The manufactured in China by Bestech, and very high-end manufacturing. Really nice steel, nice tolerances, so well done. So that's kind of the overview of the knife. Let's look at some likes and dislikes. So what do I like? Well, I already mentioned one thing. I like the opening mechanism in that it's very easy to open. I like that you can do it one-handed or two-handed, and in fact, you have several one-handed options, so you can fiddle with it. I think a very practical one-handed opening is the front flip mechanism. Is that actually called a back flip mechanism, since the tab is on this side and not on this side? I don't know. So anyway, whatever you would call that is a very convenient opening. So I really like the opening mechanisms. I like the manufacture of the blade. It's nice and sharp out of the box, and the bevel is perfectly symmetric. One of the things I give Bestech credit for. This bevel is the same angle on both sides as to the tolerance I can measure. And there are so many production knives where that is not the case. Now that doesn't matter, of course, for cutting, but it just shows an attention to detail that I appreciate. And it does matter when you eventually want to sharpen it, because it's easier to sharpen a knife in a guided system that starts out symmetric. So I like that. I like that it is small and light. It's very pocket friendly and very much not a scary looking aggressive knife, which is sort of my thing. The sheep's foot blade, I'm going to list both as like and dislike. It is a very useful blade geometry. It's a long straight edge, which is really good for sort of basic, sort of rough cutting, like cutting cardboard. And this quite pronounced pointed corner is good for scoring, so it's actually quite a useful blade geometry, and we'll give it credit for that. Now, actually staying on the blade geometry, just move into a few things I don't like. Well, I don't really like the look of sheep's foot blades. They're kind of chunky and angular, and I don't know, they're trying to look like something other than what I collect. I really prefer kind of your classic lines of a drop point, but that's a minor thing. I mean, it is a really well done blade. The major thing that I don't like about the knife is the double detent is not very strong. A detent ball system can be quite strong. I mean, I have some knives where I've complained that the detent is so strong that I have trouble opening them. So clearly you can make a detent strong or weak. Weak? I don't know, is that the right word? Gentle? Anyway, this is definitely on the weak end. There's very little effort to open that, like very little. So little that I think it is a distinct possibility that I could catch that on my keys or something in my pocket and open it as part of pulling it out of my pocket. And worse, when it's open, there is very little force on that detent holding it open. And that is much easier to start the closing mechanism than any slip joint I have, for example, where you're pushing against a back spring. So it's so easy to start it closing that I might worry that if I was cutting tough material like cardboard, and this is a knife that could easily catch in the material and begin closing as I'm moving it around, especially with this angular milled recess in it here. So I think it may be a little too easily operating to be completely safe. Now, on the other hand, as I said, I do have knives where the detent is so strong that I can't operate them, so this is a very easy to operate knife, and I guess, as I continue to get older and my hands get stiff and my arthritis gets worse, this might very well be the last knife that I can actually operate, because that's just not requiring very much effort, and I will have the strength and the dexterity to do that for a long time. So, the other thing I'll mention is, one-handed closing. This feels a little dangerous. If I start the closing, and that was very easy to do. When the detent lets go, it really does want to move a long way and quickly, and it's very easy to imagine having fingers or thumbs in harm's way as it's closing, and there's no finger tab or anything to prevent that contact. So whenever I can, I always close this knife two-handed. So that mechanism is both this knife's thing and really nice and makes it very easy to operate, but it's also the major source of dislikes for the knife. I don't know if I'm asking for something you can't have, but maybe just a little bit to the right in terms of detent strength would have made it closer to perfect. So anyway, let's run through my entirely unknown knife rating system and see how it comes out. We'll start with NTGK, which is for non-threatening gentleman's knife. We'll do non-threatening first. It's going to be pretty good there. For non-threatening, so the good news is the opening mechanism, slow and quiet. I can open it slowly, which is great in front of knife-nervous people. And when I open it slowly, it's very quiet. Just the tiniest little click. Even if I front flip it, it's very quiet. Compare that to some other knives. Just let me get another flipper here. So here's a stupid extreme on the other end. Front flipper, this is a Monterey Bay XLC. Open this, you get smack! Like, people blocks away go, oh my God, is that a switchblade? So this is a non-threatening sound, a nice slow opening that you can open with two hands, which is by definition much less threatening. And I think unique in my collection, even the one-handed opening is just not scary. So I really like that. It's a casual looking knife with the soft coarse micarta. And being a chunky looking knife, right? Long straight things, corners. I can't think of a better word than chunky. It doesn't look weapony. again, is that a word? Well, it is now. This does not look like it was meant to stab things. It looks like it was meant to cut things. So I think its appearance is non-threatening. That's all good. The only bad thing I would have about its non-threateningness is that risk that it may close when being used. And if I or someone I loaned it to were to cut themselves because it closed too easily, well, obviously that would make it a little bit scary. But I'd give it an A as non-threatening. As a gentleman's knife, I'm going to go a little lower. The good news is the boutique brand, Vero, not easy to get. Knife collectors know Vero, but you don't find them in your corner hardware store. Nice Vero logo. Minimal decoration on the blade, very understated. These are all things that I like. And it is very pocket friendly. Ultra light in the pockets. It does not weigh down the corner of your dress pants. Okay? But there's a few bads. Staying on pocket friendliness, the shallow carry and quite substantial clip. I would rather it didn't stick out of my pocket that far, so the shallow carry knocks it down a bit. The very informal micarta, a gentleman's knife, looks a little classier than this, if possible. Carbon fiber, teak, polished, unicorn bone. Even micarta, sanded finer and lacquered, can be an attractive surface. This is not really a jewelry-looking thing. And the appearance, the chunky overall appearance, I don't know if that's gentleman knifey or not. It isn't for me. It's not really the look I'm looking for. So I'm going to give it a B+ as a gentleman's knife, which means all told, A for non-threatening and B+ for gentleman's. I'll give it an A overall as an NTGK, a non-threatening gentleman's knife. Now, what about the KN rating, which is my rating for what my knife nerd friends will think? Well, the pros are, again, the boutique brand. Knife nerds know Vero. They know of Vero. There's a good chance they don't have one because they're not easy to get. Vero knives do have a unique look, which is cool. Double-detent non-locking knives are not that common, so people get a kick out of that. And oh, is there neat? So the unique mechanism is cool. The coarse micarta is really interesting and very pleasant. It's great to hold. It feels nice. It feels like your comfortable blue jeans. And my knife nerd friends appreciate that. And they will love the fact that you can open it 4 different ways. Right? You can open it two-handed. You can open it with your thumb. I can't. Arthritis. You can spidey flick it. You can front or back flip it. I think, knife nerds will get a great kick out of that versatility in the opening mechanism. The only con I can think of is as I mentioned, that lock is just very non-locked. Now, I know that non-locking makes a knife legal in certain places. Non-locking is a good thing. But you could be non-locking and be more secure than that. And I think my knife nerd friends might be a little concerned about that. So anyway, overall, I will give it an A as a KN rating. And for the CMR, the cut myself rating, simple A. I have not cut myself on it, and probably won't. It's so easy to handle, and with that nicely out of the way flipping mechanism, I think I'll probably manage to own this knife without cutting myself on it. So that brings us to the end of a fairly short review. In summary, it's a very light, compact pocket knife. I think it's great pocket carry. It's not especially attractive. I don't rate this among my sort of gentleman's office jewelry knives. I will probably rarely carry this with my tuxedo. It's more a casual Friday knife. It's a comfortable, favorite blue jeans feeling knife, and the overall design makes it look very utility. So a comfortable utility tool feeling, and for that it is great. The non-locking nature makes it friendlier in some jurisdictions, but it's very non-locking, and that might not be quite as secure as you'd like, so it needs to be handled with some care. So anyway, like it, glad to have it in my collection. And thanks for following along. See you again next time. Bye-bye.